What's she doing? I got a minute yet. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Ask City Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Alcantara.
Here.
Commissioner Bradford.
Present.
Commissioner Hersberg.
Here.
Commissioner Honaker.
Here.
Commissioner Ramos.
Here.
Vice Mayor Novick.
Here.
Mayor Masarzik.
Here. Ladies and gentlemen, if we stand for a pledge, it's a special City Commission meeting. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Commissioners, the sole item that we're charged with tonight is to make a selection. We had our interviews on Saturday. We need to do the interview ranking and the recommendations as put forward. As some, if you haven't been here or haven't been through this process here or somewhere else before, tonight we're going to rank the three firms that were there for the interview process, and then the commission then will be charged with appointing a committee to work out a contract with them. If it's unsuccessful with first choice, we then would move to the second choice on that interview. So, Commissioner Honaker, you have a question?
No.
Your name was on the board.
Discussion was all.
Well,
it says discussion.
Go ahead, sir.
So I was just waiting on you to finish your comments. Okay. Well, thanks. I thought the interviews went great. I wish we could have selected all three of them. I made a joke that we should just hire them all three and let them each do a quarter. It was so close. So
there's 4 quarters in a year.
I know, we just have to alternate quarters. It doesn't mean they're all going to do one each year.
Oh, okay.
Alternate. They're just so good.
Okay.
I went to a few staff officer schools, Command and General Staff Officer College, and when you come up with decisions you need to make, you do a staff study. So I did do a decision matrix from a staff study, and I came up with screening criteria, and there was one firm that just beat them hands down, and that was the current one that we're using. I looked at municipality experience since 1979. I looked at other city conflicts. They have no other city conflicts. Their communication and response, and it was pick up the phone and call me. The others, one was send me emails. We prefer emails, but yes, you can call us, but they prefer emails. The other ones, they prefer emails and put a timeline on it so we know when we have to answer you by. That means they're too busy to me. I mean, and then cost. They beat them in cost. Now, anything that they did not have was certifications. The certifications does not make you the right person for the job. Certifications means you had a lot of time to go to some schools and you're trying to build up your certification so you have a good resume, but they're doing good work. And then I looked at in-house. Our charter says in-house. The residents voted that if we have an in-house attorney, they would rather they live in the city. So the closest you can get to in-house is somebody that's there all the time, and every time I call them, they're available. Every time I'm over here, somebody from Fowler's firm is here. So they're like having an in-house. It's as close to an in-house as we can give our residents from what they're looking at. And my scores were 9 for Fowler. The low score is the best score.
Sir, we're
16
not voting
and 7.
yet. We're not voting
I know.
Yet,
we're not voting. I'm talking about my decision matrix scores. You give them a score, 1 through 3, because there was 3 decisions, 3 applicants in this case. And it was 9, 16, and 17. 9, I didn't even have to do weighted criteria. You can also weight the criteria times the numbers that you get. But it turned out the best. And I'm just saying that numerically it's supportable, and plus what they have done for us since they've been here. You can't get a better firm than Fowler's. So anyway, that was my comments.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank my fellow commissioners for taking your Saturday to be here to interview the firms. I apologize for not being able to be here, but I had a family commitment that I couldn't waive, and I hope that you all understand that. I didn't feel it appropriate to submit questions and not be here myself to ask those. I did want to disclose today that I did sit and watch the interviews, and I've read all the resumes, and so I'll be basing my decisions on the questions that you all asked on our behalf. And again, I just want to thank you all for taking your Saturday to do that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate it. While you were laying on the beach, we were here eating Danish. Commissioner Bradford?
Yeah, I mean, I want to thank all of the applicants that came, and I definitely want to thank, Fowler's firm for being here not once, not twice, but stepping in 3 times. And, my decision is not based on anything that I feel that they have done wrong. It's just my decision is going to be based on a firm that I feel is going to take us forward into the direction that we need to go. We do need some new perspectives and new ideas. And it is nothing personal. I have to base my decision on the mere facts of what we've seen and where we plan, like I said, where we plan to be in the future.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Alcantara.
I piggyback what Commissioner Bradford said, that this is tough because we've had Fowler here, and I really like them. This is not emotionally based, but I had top 2 prior to when we got the information from the resumes and whatnot. My top 2, top 1 was $5 fine. Top 1 was Shepard and Smith. They're still my top 1, and Fowler was my second choice, so that hasn't changed. I saw the interviews as well, and I like the experience Shepard and Smith have. They may not have been practicing law as long as other firms, but we required 10 years, I believe, is what we were asking for, right? So they have that. And I like the experience they bring when it comes to growth, especially where we are in our city. And I agree with what they said, that we are, I think he said, a canvas, where we are a blank slate, if you will, and we need someone who's going to help us get to where we need to be. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, if there's no other comments that anyone needs to make, I would ask you have an interview schedule sheet. And if you would rank the candidates, the only comments I want to make was I was extremely impressed at how all the candidates handled it. There was not a lot of difference except in the mechanics of how they plan on working with us. So I was impressed, and I was glad they all came prepared and they all answered our questions without any late arrival. Commissioner Hertzberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry. I'd just like to say I apologize for not submitting my 3 questions. Just for the record, the first question that I asked was, what is their view and how do they handle union contract and arbitration? And do they do that within their firm, or do they farm that out to another attorney, which of course would be an additional cost? When you farm that out, you're going to go ahead and go above and beyond to a different separate union attorney, and we had that in the past. And the name that we had in the past and was at times problematic was the one that was thrown out several times by firms. So the second question I asked was hypothetically during a public meeting when we're asked to vote on either a resolution or an ordinance, and something comes up, whether a member of the public, a member of the commission, or staff member recognizes there's an error, there's a problem with what we're doing, how would they handle that? And the reason for asking that question was, number one, preparedness. How much is the firm actually, the attorney actually going over our agenda, reading what we have, reading our resolutions, reading our ordinances, and actually looking at the detail work on that? And second of all, the next question was, how strong are you as an attorney going to be to tell us that we're doing something we shouldn't be doing? Then a member of the public might be right, that we maybe need to stop, maybe really need to reassess that. That was my reasoning for asking those questions. That particular question was to see the strength of the attorney and how they would guide us and how they would handle a situation like that. We know that it happens all the time. It wasn't a frivolous question. It was a question of strength, supporting a contrary opinion, and willing to stop and say, you're going down the wrong road, We need to stop. We need to redo this. That was the purpose for answering that question, and I think that one firm definitely answered it the way, I had an interest in it. And the third was interlocal agreements. Which firms have conflicts of interest or potential conflicts of interest representing municipalities that we may or may not agree with, and how would they handle something like that? Again, that was done on a basis of who else is serving Volusia County. What kind of legal advice would you have for, should there be disagreements? We all know that we have several different reasons if we were to want to go ahead and develop in other cities. And I apologize, Mayor, I'm just not thinking about the name. What is it, the board that has to certify us if we want to go ahead and change the land use that they had the county charter change for? We have a representative on it, and so VGMC.
Oh, the VGMC.
Thank you. I was thinking of something else. Anyway, and I also, should something come up for future development, and the VGMC has some power to go ahead and represent, and talk about what other cities or whether or not we're able to do what we're able to do in terms of land use and changing. And a conflict of interest with a firm that represents another municipality that could possibly go against us. I'm not saying a firm, I'm just, those are things that I was looking at. My questions went a lot deeper and a lot more involved that I was asking rather than the simpleness of the question. And the last comment that I have, I've been here 7 years, and I can't tell you how many different attorneys we've had. And an attorney is going to be, is at least 3, right? And an individual or firm, for me, has to, number one, have the strength to stop us from going down the wrong path. Number 2, it has to have the strength to go against, if staff has a way to want to do something, that's not the correct way and it's stifling. The attorney has to have the strength to come to the commission and to the manager and say, this is not the way it should be. And the attorney has to look out for the best interest for this city, for the residents, and for the future of the city. It is not an attorney's job to provide us a downtown or to decide how we're going to develop or what we're going to pass as an ordinance or anything, or a resolution, because that has to be the will of the commission. And this commission has to decide how we want to grow, where we want to grow. And I'm not saying that an attorney's firm, they didn't represent that they were doing that. I don't mean that. They cannot be a magical wand to create development, create a downtown, and do all that for the city of Deltona. And that's, to me, somehow it was presented that way. We've done this in other cities. I understand that. But this commission and future commissions have to decide a city attorney is not a magical way to grow this city and to make us magically business-oriented. That's not what I believe. They're here to guide the legal aspects of this city. And if we can't agree on a parking or a driveway resolution or carports, how are we going to grow this city? That is with us. So I don't want to believe that a city attorney is going to magically do something for this city. So those are just my comments. Thank you for indulging me. Sorry, Mayor, for being so long.
Okay. All right. All right. If nobody else has any comments, I'll finish mine up. Then I was extremely impressed. I also was kind of surprised at how identical the answers were. How, from a legal standpoint, they all agreed that outside counsel is necessary for labor negotiations. The interaction between the members that we interviewed and their team was important to me, and some stood out more than others in that area. That was one of the factors that I looked at. But anyway, that being as it is, would you go ahead then, and what we'll do is we'll all rank our interviews, understanding that if we're not successful in negotiating a contract with the first choice, we then would go, unless there's any changes, we'd go to the second choice.
Mayor, do you want to explain how we're going to rank? Is number one going to be our number one pick?
Your number one pick.
Okay, so the lowest combined score is what will be the pick of the commission.
Yes, sir. We'll turn that. Did you have a question?
Yeah, because I don't want to mess up the ranking. I can't just leave one blank, because if I put no required, why would I rank?
Well, if they're not, if you put they're not recommended for the job at all, and you want to, but you'd rank them third, it would.
So we have to rank all of them.
I don't know mathematically.
It's going to skew it.
Skew their mathematics. Yeah, I think you should rank all three, because there's only three options. So if it's the last one, it's the last one. Okay, and then if we'll have a city clerk, have someone pick these up and get them back to us. Commissioners, while they're doing this, sign the bottom. I don't know about director's approval. I don't have a director that I know of, except the other six of you. But anyway, if you would turn these in, and then in the meantime, a motion will be in order after we get this information on how you want to do negotiations. I'll throw it out. Normally, it's the city manager, myself, and the candidate. If you have a different option, you can plead that to the commission and go forward. It's up to you. What you want to do. I don't know any other scenario that would work unless you'd ask to have someone else sit on it, like finance director or something like that, so we could talk money and talk budget and so forth and so on. But that's normally the way they work. And so has anybody got any comments on how we're going to do the interview and that once we get the ranking?
Well, and I figured,
go ahead, sir.
I figured you would be there, but I was one of our members is a current, very active business member in the community. That being Commissioner Bradford, I was hoping that she could be there with you. Can you have one?
Can't, no. There'll be one.
Okay.
But that's a sunshine issue. They also, those negotiations have to be private, so we can't have two commissioners there. The one thing that came to mind, and I just mentioned it, and it's just something to throw out, I thought it might be advantageous to us to have finance director there, just if nothing else but to answer questions and to make comments, because he's the one most familiar with our budget and all. That's just an idea, though. It's not a request or part of a suggested motion. It's just something that in the past I knew you're talking a lot of money, and we know what's in the budget for the fiscal year.
In this circumstance, with Mr. Klinger's retirement imminent, he doesn't really have a dog in the fight per se.
That was
can't be manipulated by the manager. Not that she would, but he's going to be leaving. So there's not really anything that the manager could influence him on. If it was a different circumstance and the finance director was still going to be here for years to come, I would agree with that. But I think that's a good idea to have specifically Mr. Klinger.
Yeah, I was looking at it from a different standpoint, but that rings true, too. I was thinking about his knowledge of the budget. He can whip this.
My only other suggestion, I'll just throw this out to the commission because I didn't think of Mr. Klinger. My other suggestion would have been to approach former manager Dave Denny and ask him if he would sit in with you. He negotiated many contracts over his span of time with the utility and as the manager. So that's just food for thought.
But anyway, I hate to put that in a motion because we haven't talked to him. I don't know. Yeah. But anyway, okay. Are you ready? Or you want to post the results or read them out to us or whatever? Yeah.
Shepard and Smith had 16 points. Fishback Dominic had 17 points. Fowler, O'Quinn, Feeney, and Sneed had 9 points.
Okay, so that's pretty obvious. Okay.
How's that possible? How's that possible?
How's what?
Because they were somebody's number 2.
This goes 1, 2. Okay, so then a motion's in order then on how we're going to...
Mayor, I make a motion that we hire the law firm of Fowler, Feeney, and
O'Quinn
and all of them. And do you want the motion to include the hiring process? Or do you want to do that separately?
Well, the motion should say that we enter into negotiations for the top-ranked firm, which would be Fowler and Feeney, followed by Smith, so forth and so on. So all three firms actually depending if you can't negotiate a contract with Feeney, with Skip and Marcia, actually, then you would go then
Okay,
to
so I make a
Smith.
motion that we try to negotiate a contract with the law firm of Fowler, Feeney, and Quinn, and that if we're not successful, that we go to the number 2 and then to the number 3 ranked candidate.
Okay. That's the motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
And seconded by, Vice Mayor made a motion, seconded by Commissioner Hertzberg. Commissioner Alcantara?
Yeah, I was just going to say if we could, with the top 2 and re-rank the top 2 to see who's the top 1, because there might have been someone whose top first is in 3rd place, and maybe they want to take them out and get their second pick, so we could have a second round.
We've already voted. We can't re-vote. I mean, we've come up with a decision based on the 7 of us. We can't change that. But there's one thing before we vote on the motion, and we would have to vote the motion down, make a new motion. If we are unsuccessful, you know what I'm saying? The way it stands right now, it's, Fowler, Feeney, or Quinn, and then Smith as second. If we couldn't do that, there's also the option to go out for, repost the entire thing. We haven't, neither one of these are in-house firms, and I know Commissioner Honecker mentioned that, so that's up to you, but the way it stands right now, this is what we've got, and this is the way I think we should proceed. So the motion's been made and seconded. Are there any other comments? All right, you want us to vote? Okay, we got the thing here. All right, the motion passes 6-1. Commissioner Alcantara.
Can I make a comment?
No.
All right.
Yeah.
The only reason why I voted no is because they weren't my first pick. It's not that I don't think they'd be great, but the same thing I did with Ramos. He was the same. That's why I voted no.
Okay. Okay. I want to make it. Okay. Yeah. You have a right to vote the way you want. But here's the point too. In the attorney's choice, or same as city manager, requires a 5 vote. So if everyone who did pick them as first did that, we'd be in deep trouble because you have to have at least 5 votes, supermajority. But it's done and it's passed, and we will move forward. There being no other business before us.
We got to decide. Are we going to decide?
Yeah, the team. Yeah, the motion's in order for the team that to negotiation team.
Does anybody have any interest in what I said?
Dave.
It was just to contact Dave Denny, see if he wanted to sit in and help, versus having
We need
the
a
finance.
motion. We need a motion now so we can start.
I know. I'm asking if there's any interest before I make a motion. Is there any interest? Hearing none, then I'll make a motion that the mayor, the city manager, and Mr. Klinger, the finance director, negotiate a contract with this law firm that we've chosen to represent us.
All right. Motion, Commissioner Hertzberg?
I'll second that.
All right. Motion been made by Vice Mayor to follow our normal pattern, and seconded by Commissioner Hertzberg, and that would be negotiations by the city attorney. For the city attorney, by the city manager, myself, and Mr. Klinger. Commissioner Alcantara?
Yeah, I just have a question to the attorney, because I don't know how these things are done. Is that normally how it would be done, the negotiation?
It's the commission's choice. I had it off. I didn't want to say anything. It's totally the commissioner's choice. I have no problem with it, but it's you all can do it however you're comfortable.
Okay, so there's no something that's commonly done. It's just whatever the different cities want to do.
Yep, I've had situations where I've negotiated with the mayor, or I've negotiated with the city manager, or a particular designated person on the commission. So it can basically go however you all want it to.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Let us vote, please. Okay, motion passed 7-0. There'll be no more business before this. We are adjourned to go upstairs for our...
Congratulations.